All right, welcome to another and an incredibly special episode of the Final Percent podcast. I have literally three of my favorite people joining me. I have my beautiful wife, Kayla Kimball. I have Craig's beautiful wife, Meredith, and Craig himself. And these are the founders of the Road of Life Coaching. And one of the things that we were talking about before is this idea of, marriedpreneurship, couples having to live realistically a different version of life together. And obviously we've done it for about how long have we been doing business and stuff together? What, 13 years now?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, so 13 years. So, it's very normal for us. It's normal for Craig and Meredith and stuff, but a lot of people, especially in the pandemic, people were leaving their jobs, they were quitting their jobs, and then they started kind of intertwining their lives in a business sense. And it became more normal for couples to be together in business, whether they're fully in business or not, or one is really supporting the other one, whatever it might be. There's a lot of challenges. And so Craig and Meredith come from a corporate background, and they're helping, the couples kind of transcend the muck of life and the mud of life. And a great thing for coaching that I always talk about, if you listen to your coach, they are a great set of windshield wipers and that stuff that you don't realize that you need so much until it's winter and you've been using your spray all the time because you're following someone on the freeway, but you keep having to wipe it off. And then when you don't have the windshield wiper fluid, you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I need. That's a good coach, so that you can see, so that you can have vision. And so we're going to talk about the idea of what it means to be a couple, what it means to do business together, to do life together, to feel seen, to feel heard, stories from Craig and Meredith, stories from us. And just full disclosure, I did get ready to take notes on what we were going to talk about. And we just said, you know what? We've been doing life together, cool things with cool people for long enough now. Let's just keep it as organic as possible, and let's just see where this goes. So without further ado, Craig and Meredith, thank you so very much for joining us on the Final Percent podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
Super happy to be here.
Pumped.
Super excited.
So let's get into this. What is the biggest thing from your guys' point of view that you've either experienced, seen, heard, all of the above, that you're watching couples struggle with in this modern day society we live in, whether that's comparative reality, whether it's the marriedpreneurship, whether it's communication? I do not envy anybody in today's day and age that has to start trying to date, because watching all these apps and the swipe, whatever, is it swipe left or right?
I honestly don't even know. We're living in a weird time.
Like everyone's dating everyone. And like I was talking to Salo yesterday. Salo's my nephew, he's 22. And I was talking to him about dating in this world, and he's like, I just don't know. And he's like, I don't like the fact that it's hookup culture. And I just want one relationship that I can double down on. And obviously that's what we have here. But we're in this thing where trying to start a business or start a relationship or go deep on a business and a relationship, it's really difficult. What are some of the things that you guys see that couples are running into in today's day and age that is forcing them to kind of, rethink the way that they live or come together?
I think there's sort of 3-4 big issues that we run into over and over again with couples that are looking for help.
The big four?
Yeah, I think it's communication is a big one. The disconnection, like the physical and emotional disconnection, the feeling unappreciated and
unseen, unheard, undervalued
unseen,
by their spouse.
Unappreciated, and then trust. Those are the big four that we see over and over and over and over again. And I think not to kind of bring everything all up under one umbrella, but to me, most of those can be addressed through vulnerability. And I think vulnerability is the thing that's lacking the most in not even just romantic relationships, because, you know, marriedpreneurs and business partners, and, you know, there's all kinds of different relationships that exist between us and that you have. And I think vulnerability is a key component of all of them that could be built out. Like, I think, you know, to your point around social media and comparative reality, we're always trying to, you know, put the version of ourselves out that we think that other people want us to be, you know, I'm not who I think I am, I'm not who you think I am who you think I am, and you think ham sandwich. And so I think that we're all trying to be this version of ourselves that we think is the best one that people want. And so we're hiding parts of ourselves. And by doing that, we're not able to find community and feel accepted for who we are. Because as we've talked about before, in order to be accepted and feel a sense of belonging, you have to actually be yourself. You can't hide any part of you. And it's that vulnerability piece, that the flaws in you, the flaws in me, that's how we connect. And so if I'm unwilling to be my sort of unvarnished raw self with him, then there's I put a little tiny sliver of a wall between us. So I planted the seed of that disconnection, that inability to communicate. He can't see me, you know, I don't trust him or me or us enough to be able to share my whole self with him. So all four of those things to me tie into vulnerability. So I think that is the biggest piece that we're seeing a lot of in people who are looking for some help in their relationship.
Yeah, it really is a superpower to relationships. I think in particular, I think everyone struggles a little bit with vulnerability, but I do see a lot that men in particular really, really struggle with that unvarnished, that letting down their guard and showing their true self, even to their significant other. And I think it's a real barrier that we see in relationships.
And then it just festers.
Yeah, that little wall that we build that she talked about, that little one, that actually just, the longer you go, it just builds, it's bigger and bigger and bigger. Before you know it, you're completely kind of on different tracks. You're completely separate, because once that wall is up, you know, other things start to come into play. It's like, well, I'm not getting the attention here, or I'm going to go over here and get it, or I'm going to bury myself in my phone. And so then that disconnection just widens further and further apart.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. One of the things that I, you know, from a vulnerability standpoint, I still remember. So with men being so vulnerable, or so not vulnerable is what I mean, it particularly shows up with other men. And I still remember this really pivotal moment actually between myself and Craig. And because, you know, it's no secret, unfortunately, I've got to be like, Kayla always talks to me. She goes, I just hate how you always have the weight of the world on you. And it's like you're playing air traffic controller for companies and our companies and people and this, and then oftentimes I'll get blamed for, well, everything actually. When, you know, I wish people could see, you know, behind the scenes and understand how much we care. And I think that's the thing. Like, if anyone out there is saying, hey, I want to become a coach because they think it's an easy path, you are wrong. Like you're like, I love how they immediately laugh, but like you have to do it because you really want to help. But Craig loves basketball, and we were outside, and Craig probably remembers this moment. We were outside playing basketball, and it was in between games, and I pulled him aside and I just said, I've needed someone like you for a really long time in my life, because I haven't had another guy that I felt like I could turn off. I haven't had that. Like I've always had to be the guy. I've always had to
be on.
Be the example, be the this, and, you know, being able to have someone else who's strong enough to either coach, be coached, be a mentor, be a mentee, be a friend, be a community member, like wearing so many hats is actually incredibly difficult. And I remember it was like the first time I was able to say that to another guy and just like to the final percent mean it. And it was really, really special for me because like I hadn't had a friend where I felt like I could just be like, so I'm like about ready to burst into tears. I just needed a buddy and like have him show up for me instead of like, dude, why are you being weak, bro? Like this, like
Bro culture.
the bro culture sucks so bad. But like you need to have like strong men. But like I think a superpower, and this is something Kayla actually taught me. But a superpower is being able to say I don't know.
Yeah.
And you got
to be okay with that.
And you got to be vulnerable saying that, especially when you're supposed to be the guy and you've read so many books and you're this. One time where like my mouth was like going a little faster than my brain with my wife, which unfortunately happens more than it should. I remember her just looking me dead in the eyes and she goes, Greg, sometimes it's okay to just say, I don't know. So use those words and then let's figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't love you any less. I don't love you any less.
Oh, so what are some of the things that you see in couples and things like, what do you think, like some of the stuff that we've gone through, you know, in building this crazy thing called life?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was just trying to figure out how to find that balance of, or do you kind of just like the hats that we wear, the roles that we play in being, you know, we've done so much together in a relationship, we've been in a band together, starting businesses together, living together, now building a family together. We're doing all of these things together. And it's like, how do you find that balance of like, right now we're having a meeting and I can't react to this situation as wife. I got to react to the situation as business partner, or say if we're having a disagreement of some sort in business and you're like, we're talking as business partners right now, not husband and wife, or vice versa. It's just like trying to better understand like which hat are we wearing at any given point of our many interactions, and then not taking things personally, not being offended by certain things that the other one might say, you know, with the best of intentions, of course. But that took a little while to kind of, you know, dial in on that piece of it. But I would say, honestly, for the most part, fortunately, a lot of that kind of just happened naturally for us. But I do oftentimes like remember thinking like that was a challenging piece because, you know, I get a little emotional every now and then, as we all do, right? And sometimes
I never get emotional. I don't appreciate how fast you guys laugh.
We all like laugh it off. We all laugh it off.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I think a lot of couples struggle with that. I mean, it's a very complicated dynamic, right? You're trying to navigate that and you're wearing so many hats all at the same time sometimes. And, you know, and you're not always going to be showing up as the best version of yourself at any given point. And so you have to, you know, try to, like I said, find that balance. And then when you fall short, you know, make sure you have a partner or a kind of relationship where they can support you and help you navigate that instead of shame you or cause a fight or, you know, whatever. You have to be like, hey, I'm kind of sensing, you know, you're struggling with this in this moment. Like, let's talk about it and work our way through it. And like Meredith said, work on communication. You know, that's a big piece of it too.
I think one of the pivotal things that happened, well, it didn't happen, but it was a realization for me. We were at, was it the 2020 summit up in Vail? Actually, we had a lot of those. But that was
the more recent one. Yeah. That was the last one we did.
So, so we did a summit and it was 2020 and we had a group of, I don't know, 30 or 40 people. And so
that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was fun.
We did a relationship panel and I'm going to tell the story. I just go, and then I'm going to let you finish it. So we had someone, so everyone's talking about, you know, some of the, like, we're doing a relationship series called It's Weird That It's Weird. And so let's just share like two of the videos that I think are going to be like my favorite. They're already my favorite.
What are your favorites?
So my favorite is, so we looked at each other the other night. And by the other night, I mean, probably it was like, what, 2.5, 3 months ago?
Yeah.
Because we were like figuring out, you know, what makes us us. And then I literally looked at her and I think she had grabbed like a box of Wheat Thins or something, which for whatever reason, we are like on a Wheat Thin kick.
Didn't happen. Didn't happen.
And I looked at her and I said, do you want to know what I feel every night that we get to hang out together? And I said, I feel like we're having a what?
Slumber party.
Slumber party. Like we literally were like, every time we hang out, we sit on the couch, we hang out in bed. It's like, it literally those same vibes.
Like when you were a little kid and you get excited to go over to your best friend's house for a slumber party and you'd have all the snacks and all the stuffed animals or toys or movies or whatever. You would just go in and it was like the highlight of your life. Like that's the vibe.
It's and we like like even last night we were jumping on the bed and we were like, are we having a slumber party?
While trying to be quiet because Conrad's sleeping, but we're like,
Because he's right above us, and we're like, and so like having those like little things between us. And then the other thing is like when we were going through the COVID thing, and I mean we're dealing with like millions of dollars of refunds and everything like crashing down. We don't know what the heck we're gonna do. There was one time like I mean I had a lot of tears of being scared, you had a lot of tears of being scared, and then we came up with this thing of just trying to understand like what's actually like our magic. And it was funny because you know I can't remember, but like there was one time we were overdrawn by like a couple $100,000, and we're like trying to figure out what happens, like what happens in this chapter. And we looked at each other. I looked at her and I go, we're rich. And she's like, oh, apparently that means track me. We're learning. But we realized that like what makes us rich has nothing to do with money. It's like it's this.
We have each other, we have purpose, we have common vision, we have still a company that's, you know, working its way through something
and
crazy.
We got through.
And we made it through. Like there was a lot to be grateful for in that moment, even aside from all the chaos.
Yeah, because we were in that education space in music. So not only
double
did
whammy,
like all education stopped and no music events. Like we got double whammied. And we had to redefine what rich was. And so every time something bad happens or, you know, something starts like this, like we'll look at each other and we'll just like throw our hands in the air and we'll go, we're rich, honey. And so like having those little moments.
You just gotta laugh. Like there's nothing else you can do about it in that moment. So freaking out does nothing to help your sanity or the situation. So sometimes you just gotta laugh it off, man, and be like, all right, cool.
And so we have all these little things that make it. We're doing 100 video series on all of these little things, and we're you know now rewinding. I kind of Quentin Tarantino'd this story. But going to 2020, we're doing this relationship panel, and everything's going great. Then we have someone, we will not name this person, but we have someone raise their hand. Anyone who was there knows this story and they know who it is. But they raise their hand and they obviously are trying to set a landmine to show cracks in the armor of Kayla and myself. Because we talk about in there how, you know, there's an ongoing thing where for whatever reason, I go full dude mode on certain things, which means somehow my chones will end up like 18 inches from the hamper. Like how did I not get them in the hamper? And so we started kind of talking about moments like this. And this person raises their hand and they're like, well, isn't that so disrespectful? And isn't that this? And he can't do this. And he expects you to do, and like landmine. And I was about to defend myself, but then I realized, hey, number one, the question was directed towards Kayla. And I'm very curious to get her take on this, because if she's as mad as this person, I got to rethink some things. And so why don't you talk about what you said in that relationship panel?
I mean, I don't quite remember it 100%, but how I still feel about it, at least, is I don't get mad about it. Like I understand that he knows how to physically throw his chones in the hamper. You know,
you would think so.
Something obviously is going on to where his mind is busy or elsewhere, or he's doing so many things all the time for this family and for me and for the household that if that didn't happen, I trust him so much that I know it happened for a reason. His mind was busy. Point is, whatever the reasoning behind that is, like, I don't assume bad intent. Some people are like, well, he disrespects you, or that is like expecting you to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, that's not his intent. He's just busy. And if he didn't think about it, he was just throwing stuff around, ready, go, boom, on to the next thing. If you know Greg, he's always go, 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 sometimes doing 20 things at the same time. Like, he's only one person. His brain can only process so much at once. And I got to give him some grace, because he's doing so much for us. And like, if I am just walking around picking up stuff anyway, why wouldn't I try to just help him out and throw the thing away for him? I think I saw a post around that same time, that now that I'm thinking about it, where it was like, don't be an a-hole. If you're capable of helping out your significant other, regardless of what it is, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Why make it a bigger story in your head than it needs to be, or assume all of this bad intent? Like, just do it if you're capable. If I'm not capable of throwing it away and it bothers me, I'll talk to him about it and we'll have a conversation. We'll communicate. I'm sure he'll be better about it.
Mm-hmm.
But little things like that, like, I don't let them bother me. It's like, always assume good intent of your significant other is the biggest takeaway from that whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you've mentioned that twice, and
100%.
it super aligns with something that we talk a lot about, which is the same thing, benefit of the doubt. Like, who else in the world besides this person, like, why wouldn't you give them the benefit of the doubt? Like, you picked them to be your person for the rest of your life for a reason. Why wouldn't you give them benefit of the doubt?
If not her, then who would I ever give the benefit of the doubt to?
Fair.
100%.
And that being said, we're not perfect.
No.
Like, there's been times, and there's one story in particular that we actually shared on the Exponential Relationship series on the TFP app when we talked about this concept, where when I get together with my girlfriends and I come home and he says, oh, what did you do? I said, generally we sit around a kitchen table and we chit chat, right? Because we don't get together that often. So when we do, we sit around an island or on a couple of couches and we just talk about stuff. So I come home and I'll say, oh yeah, we chit chatted, and that's great. But I don't notice the terminology that I use. I just say it. And so we're out for a walk one day in the park and he said something about, what were you doing? Chit-chatting? And I didn't say anything, but he felt my energy shift. And you want to jump in? Want me to the whole story?
I did. I noticed that there was a shift in the energy, and I was just like, are we good? Like, something's off here. What's going on? And we realized that it was my use of the word chit chat. She did not appreciate my use of the word chit chat.
It felt in the moment like diminishing what we were doing, what my friends and I were doing, or whoever it was. I don't remember this specific experience.
I don't either.
But he said, I was like, I know, chit chatting feels like it's diminishing. And he's like, but that's the terminology you always use. And I paused and I was like, oh, that is the terminology I always use. And he's like, if you're not like, I would never intentionally try to diminish anything that you do. And so you're not going to give me the benefit of the doubt, then who?
Yeah.
Huh. And so there's a value in a pause.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important, is just understanding, like, if you dive into like behind the scenes of Craig and Meredith, like there's like, we have this kind of conversation, we use this language, but like, you guys have your own language. And if you dive in behind the scenes with, Greg and Kayla, like we literally, we have our own language. And so it's just like, chit chat is like part of your vernacular. It's just, he's just like, hey, I want to use chit chat too. Like, is there a different inflection? Like, how do I deliver this word? So, and that's the thing. I think it also transcends the romantic relationship, because we do this with family members. We do this with friendships. We do this where we start the stories in our head. We start the assuming bad intent. And it's just like, it's based on every available like thing that I have ever interacted with you guys. Like I basically have no basis or right to assume bad intent. Even if someone like came to me and showed me video, and apparently we're tracking again. Cool. Thanks, camera. we're gonna have to figure out how to turn that off. Stop it! There's two of us here.
You sit here and do this.
But like, even if they gave me video evidence of like, dude, look at Craig and Meredith talking crap about you. Look at all of this stuff. I'd be like, that's AI generated. I'm sorry. I do not like, I
That's
don't
fair.
agree. Everything I know about you guys is this. And until I experience or know, and that's, I think, the thing where you have, you know, relationships that fall apart that really didn't need to. And I can't remember where I heard this from. I know we had talked about it on our last date night, but basically, like, she and I are as aligned as you can possibly be. And that, and that is basically 80% of 100%. So like the most aligned you can be with another human being, because you have different, you know, ages, experiences, families, sometimes religious beliefs, like there's
upbringings, perspectives on
parents,
life, yeah.
like all of these things, like the most we're going to be aligned is 80%. So are we ever going to let the 20% mess up the 80%? We can't. But that's as aligned as you can be. So when you have like really good friends, like I consider Craig an incredible friend, but we're probably like 60% aligned. There's a bunch of stuff where it's like, hey, I'm different. We can never let this break the good, because the average relationship is like aligned like 15%. And then you spend like a decade realizing that, oh, we were never aligned. Like this was hard from the beginning. And I think that people need to recognize that, stop expecting 100% alignment. And we've done this in parenting so much, where I was brought up very differently. And so sometimes like I have a very specific thing I want to communicate to Conrad, and she's just like looking at me like, no, like that's not, like, I thought it was completely fine.
Oh, this
Is
is
it
gonna be
scary
good.
that I don't know where you're going with this?
When he was like one and barely walking and kind of this, like, I thought it was completely normal that I'm just going to start Spartacus again and watch it. And she's like looking at me like, dude, people's heads are getting chopped off. Like
Lots of nudity,
like,
lots of custody,
like,
lots of blood.
and I'm like, he's not going to remember. And she's like, I don't care.
It's like, no, I don't know what he's dreaming about. It little like images popping in his head of heads popping off. Not really conducive.
And then I had to rethink. I'm like, huh, yeah, that's accurate. Like that's, but it's something I didn't even notice. And, you know, when I was coaching Eileen, I talk about this all the time, but I remember when I was first coaching Eileen, I would tell her like all the stuff I knew about parenting when I didn't have kids. And I still look back on that version of me as a coach, and I'm like, which was not, just to be very clear, guys, this is not that long ago. It was 3 years ago, and now we're on Kayla.
Woo.
This camera
Just likes me. I
mean, it should. But you know, and that's the thing is like, I should have just, instead of like, oh, I've read parenting books, we've been trying to have a kid, and this is what all the books say. And then I had to quickly realize that all those books equip you for those people's kids. They don't help you with your kid. And I've apologized to Eileen so many times. I'm like, remember when I said like skip the soccer game and go to the conference? I'm sorry, like never skip the soccer game. And so it's just like, your perspective is always changing. And that's why, like, I think, you know, we talk a lot about the idea of truth. And I think that, you know, I did a live on this, and I think it's important for everyone to understand, we don't actually care about what's true, because there's two truths that can coexist simultaneously. And, you know, we're very Christian. We have friends that are not. We have friends that are Muslim, that are Islamic, that are atheists, that it doesn't matter, but that's their truth. So it's like, if that's their truth and this is our truth, well, then what's true? Okay, so truth is already kind of this ambiguous thing. So we talk a lot about are they coming from a place of honesty? So like, if they're Muslim and they honestly feel that and they're communicating what they believe, awesome. I want to listen. I want that information. And the same goes within our marriage is, there's certain things that are true for her that are not true for me. But if she's coming from a place of honesty, I need to listen, and vice versa. And then the other thing is loyalty. I think loyalty is kind of a lost art. And if you look at, like, we've been married for almost 10 years now.
Coming up on 10.
Almost 10 years. That's exciting. That takes loyalty. That takes loyalty. And we have this beautiful marriage because of loyalty. Friendships, like we're really close with you guys, but we've been hanging out now for over 2 years now. So it's like, yeah, like you guys met like Conrad when he was 1 month old. So I think it's like basically exactly 2 years.
Yeah.
We're closer now than we were when we first met. Well, that's because there's time. You have to give things time to blossom. And so the other thing that I would invite everybody, something that we've learned from a marriage and trying to get initiatives done, building companies, getting people to buy into ideas, is you cannot discount tenure. You cannot discount time. And if you look at Craig and Meredith and the road of life and you're like, must be nice, they have the nice because they did the must. And if you look at Greg and Caleb, our marriage, and must be nice having a marriage like that. Well, we did what we must do to have the marriage. But we have a different marriage now than we did when we were first married.
100%. We've learned a lot.
You got to give things time to blossom. Like it takes time to go from the caterpillar to the butterfly. But most people get to the cocoon and then just stay there because they're scared. Like, don't have cocoon energy.
You want fake butterfly energy.
If there's anything you take from this episode, don't have cocoon energy.
So give us from your guys' point of view, like you guys went through corporate America. I always say corporate America because it's such a word for me. Oh. Corporate life.
Corporate Canada.
Corporate Canada. It's weird. You guys probably think that that's a normal phrase in your head, but it just sounds so incomplete to me. It's not.
We don't say corporate Canada at all.
No.
Just corporate life.
Okay. Corporate life.
Corporate life.
Oh, okay. Well, they definitely say corporate, but corporate America probably is still different than corporate Canada. We get pretty. It's not awesome. I love
a lot more similarities than you think.
Unfortunately, well, especially in the oil side of things, that's not the least cutthroat industry that's out there. I know that you guys have this thing about the big yellow binder, which I still think is really important for people to know, because unfortunately, as you guys know, when you talk about the how so much, how you're going to transition out of corporate life, how you're going to have a great marriage, how you're going to start your coaching practice, how you're going to do this. If I were to have given you the big yellow binder at the beginning, you'd have been like, oh, okay. And then basically by the time we get to page 2, we need to either rewrite it or throw it away. So everyone out there, you're looking for the big yellow binder. And if you don't know what that is, Craig, do a freaking podcast on that, because it's so freaking insightful. He talked about it at our retreat in Wyoming. And I know that they're going to release the videos of the speech about the big yellow binder, but that's basically what everyone's looking for in coaching and marriage counseling. They're like, just tell me how to fix it. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. It's like, no, you got to become the person that does the things. Like there's a sense
basically
of that.
They're just asking you to do it for them.
Yeah. They hire, I always say it's kind of like hiring the personal trainer to lift the weights for you.
Yeah. You have to do the work.
That's not how it works. But if you guys had to write, I'm not going to say 10 because I feel like that's a lot right now to put you guys on the spot. But if you had to put your like top 3 commandments that you would put in a big yellow binder, 1 for you personally, 1 for your marriage, and 1 for your business. What is the one thing in each of those areas that you would tell people thinking about doing business with their spouse, going on a personal, journey, and then the marriedpreneur thing. And I love the fact that we gave you guys zero time to think about this.
Yeah.
What would the three things be?
I think one we talked about already is it's extreme, like for the relationship, vulnerability is key. And that's in all, like we wear a lot of hats, like we're business partners, we're best friends, we're husband and wife, so we wear a lot of hats, same as you guys, and you have the additional one of being parents. I think being vulnerable and sharing your truth, whatever that is in the moment, is incredibly important for being able to navigate all those relationships, all those hats, all those roles that we share in our relationship.
I think in terms of the getting out of the corporate world and trying to make your way into the world of entrepreneurship, whether you're marriedpreneurs or not, it's so hard for me. So I know it's hard for other people, but to your point, letting go of how. When we made the decisions to leave our corporate job, we were really lucky in that a decision was forced on us that, you can keep your job if you want to move 2,000 miles back west, or you can leave and we'll give you severance and wish you well on your merry way. And it was an incredibly, incredibly stressful decision to make. And obviously, inevitably, we decided to leave and figure it out on our own. And we're both very plan-oriented people. We like a lot of structure. We like a lot of formality.
That's an understatement.
Can confirm, right? We're very, very into lists and organization and plans and make the plan, execute the plan, all that stuff. And so when this decision came, we made the decision, I think, based on our gut feeling, on our intuition. And I can remember having the conversation with my team at work, letting them know that, we've made this decision. We don't know what it looks like. We don't have a plan. So we're going to leave our, 6-figure corporate jobs and do ? Like it was like incredibly not. It was,
okay,
and it was
side note, please make that podcast like a little series like I did the Homeless Millionaire. You guys need to tell that story because we're gonna and we're tracking again. Thank you.
This time I started tracking you.
Yeah, I don't know anymore. But we're gonna leave our 6-figure corporate jobs for ? I think is fantastic. And make it episodic because it's I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, we'll come up with that. But it was, it's a great story today. In the moment, it was incredibly terrifying, incredibly stressful. And I can remember going for a walk as we're kind of talking it through and just having the conversation that the gut feeling for this is it's the right decision. And we are trusting the plan will appear. And what we found is that you take a step and then another one or two becomes evident. You're never going to see the whole staircase. You're never going to see the whole journey, the whole path lit up in front of you, all well signed on your road of life. You're going to have to take a step and trust that the next step or two will become apparent once you've taken the first one. So it is
out of sheer curiosity. Do you know who coined this? What you're talking about? Okay, it's great minds must think alike because this guy who I heard, and apparently we're tracking again. I hate this thing. I need to get a different camera. This guy named Martin Luther King Jr. says that when the first step is taken, the staircase appears.
And so you have to take that first step blind.
So good.
So it's a huge leap of faith and it's super scary, but I think it's I'm a Canadian fan of the Toronto Raptors, so I like to quote Fred VanVleet. It's like we had to bet on ourselves, with no experience doing this, no yellow binder, no nothing, no knowing what we were going to do, and just jump and trust that the net would appear. And it was like a 2-year journey, kind of building that net as we're falling, or building the bike as we're running, whatever, whatever the analogy is, but trying to figure it out as we're doing it. And so there's probably less stressful ways to go about it, but I think the moral of the story, the big takeaway lesson is you're never going to have it all figured out before you have to take action. And you're going to have to take a big, scary step in order to make the change you want. And it's going to be terrifying. And so trust yourself that you will figure it out, because
You've figured everything else out to this point.
totally.
Like you got here and your life wasn't all roses and unicorns and rainbows. Like we've all been through stuff that got us to this point.
Yeah.
And you got through it and got to this point. So what makes you think the next challenge you can't get through just as easily or just as, successfully?
Yeah. In hindsight, it could always be less stressful. There's a few things where we look back and we're like, yeah. That was I don't know if that was a forward step. But we took the
Not
step.
always going to be right. They're not always going to be forward steps. They're going to end up lateral. There might be a step back, but as long as you're moving, that's the main thing.
Well, and I think that we're pre-wired to see motion, and you have to be in motion to be seen. So I think that is a huge thing. I wrote an entire song about move. So I mean, you freaking moved from Arizona to come hang out with this crazy dude named Greg.
Yep. Oh my gosh, yeah. And I had no plan. I mean, he had just started KMG. I just left a corporate job as well, and we're tracking again.
Yep. You like to party.
And I was terrified, but something inside me told me that it was the right move to make. And I had like no friends here. I had like an aunt and uncle who lived an hour away. So I didn't know anybody here. And it's like, yeah, let's leave all my friends and family, leave my job.
Your friends asked you, are you in love with the guy? And you said what?
No.
In
we were
denial.
just friends. Well,
In denial. I like that.
Actually, to be fair, I had this realization later in life, but I 100% was, because I was like, oh, we're just friends, because my last producer started having feelings for me and made things super awkward. And I just wanted to focus on my career and business and building something for my life. And I moved up to Colorado and I wanted to work with Greg. And it just literally hit me out of nowhere one day. I was like, oh my God, I have feelings for this guy. But it had been developing the whole time since I'd met him. I think I was in so much denial. I didn't want to realize it. So I didn't realize it.
Me, on the other hand, I told her, like literally our first date, I said, we're going to get married. So also my opening line was, you've never met anyone like me, and
I'm going to change your life.
Yep. So.
And I thought he was insane.
So you did the exact same thing, right? Like you took a blind leap. You didn't know anyone. You didn't know you were in love with him. Like you just jumped in and trusted yourself that you'd figure it out.
Yep.
So just to clear, anyone who's never heard that story, to clear a couple things up so I don't sound like a crazy pretentious asshole. I set affirmations for myself. I'm a speaker. I try to set my energy. So before any conversation, I say quietly to myself, you've never met anyone like me, and I'm going to change your life, because that's the energy I want to carry. I loved this girl already so much, and I was so nervous to finally be on a date with her. I said it out loud on accident. And I still remember them coming out of, and I was like, what did you just say?
I laughed at him because I was like, this guy has to be high right now. Like, this is crazy talk. Like, what are you saying to me? But honestly, truer words have never been spoken. Like, I had never met anyone else like this guy, and he completely changed my whole life. So
same though, babe. Same. So you definitely carry that same energy. I just still cannot believe. Like, I wish I had that on camera. Like, that's just one of those moments where it's like, whoa, bro. That like I wish we had that. I wish I could carry somewhere. Like that much confidence to where I really did. Like, I meant to say it out loud. But no, I was mortified after I said that. So
you played it off good though. You're looking at me like, yeah, I said that. Inside he's screaming, oh my God, what did I just do?
What did I just say?
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I've got a question for you guys. So in the last 2 years, what has been the absolutely scariest slash did we make a mistake slash should we keep going slash epiphany, just what was the darkest moment? Because I mean, a lot of people have these golden handcuffs, bronze handcuff, whatever you want to call them, the financial handcuffs that corporations put on incredible people like yourselves. You make this decision and then you're like, what did we just do? Like, did we just mess everything up? Can you tell me about that moment? Can you?
We can. Yeah, we can.
Yeah. You're like, I know exactly the moment. And we're going to tell you all about it on their new podcast, The Road of Life. So a couple things, housekeeping items I want to get done. I want you guys to connect with Craig and Meredith. I want you to connect with The Road of Life. I want you to support them. Just because they're relatively new in the coaching space does not mean they're new in the being able to help you space. And I think a lot of people, they don't understand that when you can connect with people that are this good at what they do early on, it is extraordinarily beneficial for a couple reasons. You get way more access than normal. Once they reach critical mass, everything gets more expensive, and the access, the service, the priority is much harder to attain. I can absolutely vouch for these guys. Also, I do not, make it a secret that I don't like helping couples, because half the time there's 3 relationships that are happening. There's one with the guy, one with the girl, one with the together, and all 3 versions of the conversation, they're saying something different. So it's frustrated me to no end. So I don't do it anymore. And I don't do it anymore because, there's my camera. I don't do it anymore because you have to have a heart for it. And you have to have an incredible amount of patience. And these guys are the people that I absolutely want to send anybody and everyone. So if you've been on the fence on, we need some help, couples coaching, Kayla and I are not the people for you, mainly because we don't offer it and it's not a service we provide. I will say that Craig and Meredith are. They do it for the right reasons. They started out in one area of coaching, and it kind of, came over to this version of what they do. And so, they're going to get vulnerable on their podcast, but we're a community. In the final percent, I'm all about equipping people and helping people. And when I find people who are needed and necessary in the coaching environment, the coaching ecosystem, I really want to support them. Number one, I talk about this all the time. Support is the number one way you can help your friends and help other people, very specifically if you believe in what they do. And I believe in these guys as human beings. I believe in why they're doing it. I believe in the product that they put out. And I want anybody who's listening to this podcast to go hang out and listen to their journey. If you've ever, and this is especially important if you've been thinking about being a coach, they've gone through 2 years of work in the becoming department, and now they're starting the doing phase. So you can see what podcast 1 looks like versus podcast 200. You can see that what stage in Wyoming in front of 20 people looks like versus when they're in front of 2,000 people or 20,000 people. Depending on your journey, I'm telling you that it's fun to watch incredible people. It's a little bit like, if you could go back and watch Babe Ruth try to figure out how to swing a baseball bat, if you could go back and watch Lewis Hamilton in the karting days, if you could go back and watch Tony Robbins when he was working with Jim Rohn. And a lot of people don't realize that, Tony Robbins worked with Jim Rohn for almost 14 years. And he was an incredible student of Jim Rohn. But if you could be back there when Tony Robbins was in that becoming phase, you can learn actually more than when Tony Robbins is Tony Robbins. And so because they've done the work, they're helping the people. And I can say this because, I was able to coach them for a while, and they've become incredible friends of mine and now business partners of mine. I'm telling you right now, I cannot co-sign for these human beings enough. So I want you to go over there. If you're subscribed to the Final Percent podcast, you have to subscribe to this one. They have incredible stories. They've been all over the world. They go to the World Cup. They're currently in Buenos Aires, I think, and they just got done hiking Machu Picchu, Pikachu, Pika. They were, I think, in Peru. Like, they're incredibly interesting. They are always in action. They're always getting better. And if you're in the coaching space, and this isn't, and the one thing that I want to get across is it's fun to watch these kinds of journeys, but this isn't just a couple's side of things. So if you're in the coaching space in any way, these are incredible people to watch, because you're going to be able to connect with them at a level right now, and you're going to be able to follow in the footsteps of what they've done. We talk a lot about the snowplow principle. I've been a snowplow for a lot of people. They can be a snowplow as well, because a lot of people don't go back to my first episode, or they didn't see me when I was first starting to speak. They didn't see me at my first event. And so this is such a great time to build your community with people who are doing it for the right reasons. They're needed and necessary. And so we're going to do part 2 and get into the vulnerability side of, how and what they're doing, where they're going, why they're going, so that you can lock in on not just what Road of Life is about, but who the Road of Life is. And that's why, when we started out, we just wanted to kind of do this. Let's have fun and let's just talk as friends, and introduce you guys to 2 of my very favorite people. But probably even more importantly, a company that the coaching industry needs, because they're not these people who went and got the certification for $25 on the internet and called themselves a life coach. That kind of stuff pisses me off. These are people who care deeply. They read the books. They show up to the sessions. They are constantly, like, if you're on YouTube watching this, I literally have their new journal, Why Not You? And that's what it's all about. At some point they had enough courage to look themselves in the mirror and say, why not us? And now they want to equip you on your road of life. They want to equip you to go down any exit that you might find interesting. They'll probably talk about how they're suckers for the world's largest anything, and even the world's second largest something.
True.
Can confirm. But we have footage of, we took a road trip with them to Austin. We've done a lot of incredible things with them. And I want to equip people, with the right companies. And if you're new to coaching, watch these people, because they put in the time, the energy, the effort, and you are going to watch an incredible rise. And then if you are looking for great relationship coaching, and this is real coaching, this isn't therapy, this is like how do you get there when you look at the movies and you're going, what is that like? How do you get that? If you want the Hallmark movie, I'm telling you, get on a great road of life, and they're going to put some better gas inside of your car that you're traveling down the road. So with that being said, you are going to find part 2 of this episode on their podcast. That I want you to go over there, and I want you to leave a comment. I want you to share it, and let's show people what support looks like, because that's what this is all about. This is an incredible time to where you get to be the rocket fuel to help people become known and raise awareness. And maybe by your comment, you could save someone's marriage. That's really what people need to know that they exist so that they can help more people. That's what this is all about. So with that being said, it's the Road of Life, or the Road of Life Coaching. What's the specific name that they have to punch in?
Road of Life podcast.
Road of Life podcast. So we're going to do part 2, and I want you to go over there so that we can show you guys it, when it is not all puppies and hearts and rainbows and everything. How do you get through? How do you keep these smiles on your face? And how do you keep wanting to go to the next level to help people? Because again, it's not easy. You have to really want to do this, and you want to do it for the right reason. So visit us for part 2 so that we can dive in a little bit more over on their podcast, and be sure to share, like, and leave a review. That really helps the algorithm. So 5-star. If I see anybody that I know who you are, if it's less than 5-star, I will hunt you down. I'm just saying. That is not a light. That's not a light comment.
But it's worthy of 5 stars.
It is worthy of 5 stars. So go hang out, find out for yourself, and we will see you guys over there.
It's the final percent. The final percent.